Welcome, everyone. We would like to call on the Philippine Consul General, Austria, to give us a greeting this evening.
Thank you, Irv. Thank you, Attorney Asuncion, Ambassador Robles, Ambassador Reader, MP Chu, and my friends in PCTC. I'm very honored to join you tonight, along with two other distinguished diplomats, my boss, Ambassador Rodolfo Robles, and my good friend, Ambassador Neil Reader. I have had the honor to work with Ambassador Reader in Manila from 2014 to, I shall say, 2016, when he was the Canadian ambassador to Manila. That was a time of great opportunity and great challenges in the bilateral relations. I remember that was a time when we had Philippine President Benigno Aquino visit Ottawa, a first from a Philippine leader after a long time. And that was also the time when Premier Clark came to Manila to open the BC Trade Office. But at the same time, Ambassador Reader and I also bonded over a particularly challenging and tragic issue. So I'm very glad to see that Ambassador Reader remains engaged in strengthening the Philippine and Canada bilateral relations, this time in terms of his participation in B2 Gold. It is a pleasure to see you tonight, Ambassador Reader, and I look forward to hearing from you. And please give my regards to your lovely wife, Irene, who is the darling of Philippine society. So thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. We would also like to hear today from the Philippine Ambassador Robles. Would he be kind enough to speak to us?
Mr. Neil Reader, former Canadian Ambassador to the Philippines and Vice President for Government Relations, B2 Gold. Mr. Irvin Hildebrand, Chairman of Philippine-Canada Trade Council. Consul General Maria Andrelita, Austria, Philippine Consulate General, Vancouver. Attorney Vicente Asuncion Jr., the original. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. I do hope you and your respective families are healthy, well, and safe during these uncertain times, especially as most countries are grappling with the third resurgence of these COVID-19 cases. I wish to convey my sincere appreciation to the Philippine-Canada Trade Council for inviting me to welcome you all tonight. I am likewise very pleased to meet, albeit virtually, the officers and staff of the Philippine-Canada Trade Council and seeing again a good friend of the Philippine Embassy, Mr. Neil Reader. This virtual meeting highlights the importance of continued linkage between and among firms, businesses, and entrepreneurs from the Philippines and Canada to disseminate information, facilitate communication, and mitigate pandemic restrictions that impede the movement of trade, services, and investment. We are aware that trade flows between Canada and the Philippines do not reflect the respective size of our economies. We seek to revitalize trade and investment links between the two countries through a potential bilateral multilateral free trade agreement. I encourage you to actively seek fresh opportunities as Canada diversifies its trading partners. By having a huge diaspora of the Philippines, there are so many low-hanging fruits for entrepreneurs like you. You do not need to always think big, as you can start small. It is incredible how Potato Corners, a ready-to-eat French fries retailer, is able to make inroads in a country of Putin, which I assume you are all familiar with. Although Philippine exports and imports to Canada plummeted last year by more than 37.2% and 0.3% respectively, and yet total remittances from Canada even increased by more than 1%. This affirms the importance of OFW, who are indeed our modern heroes. Aggregate global remittances represented 9.2% of the Philippine GDP, helping our economy float during these difficult times. This is why high in my agenda is the recognition of Philippine educational and professional credentials by Canadian provinces. Tonight's event will feature B2 Gold, a Canadian investor in the Philippines in the field of mining. Before the pandemic made a landfall in Canada, let it be noted that more than half of Canadian investments in ASEAN in 2019 went to the Philippines. Last year, the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada reported that Canadian firms invested a total of $124.5 billion to the Philippines, mostly in the field of financial services and consumer goods. I'm also excited to learn more about B2 Gold and its corporate social responsibility programs that are being implemented in Masbate. I learned that the company is doing important work on the preservation and protection of environment, livelihood, and community resiliency, among others. I look forward to a meaningful and productive discussion tonight. Thank you very much, and mabuhay to everyone.
Thank you, Ambassador Robles. That was kind of you. I appreciate your greetings as well as your encouragement. And we look forward to an exciting evening tonight. We're coming to our guest speaker, and I would ask that Elena, would you be kind to introduce our guest tonight?
Thank you. I would like to introduce Ambassador Neil Reeder. He was our former Canadian ambassador to the Philippines, and now he is the Vice President, Government Relations at B2 Gold Corp. Neil Reeder joined B2 Gold in 2017, following a distinguished government career of over 35 years with Global Affairs Canada. He helped advance Canada's trade, foreign policy, and development agenda during 7 different diplomatic postings overseas and increasingly senior positions in Ottawa. Most recently, he served as Canada's ambassador to the Philippines from 2013 to 2016. His previous ambassadorial postings include serving as Canada's High Commissioner to Brunei and as Canadian ambassador to Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Honduras. He has also served as deputy head of mission at the Canadian Embassy in Mexico. Mr. Reeder has a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Saskatchewan and a Bachelor of Journalism degree from Carleton University. He speaks 3 languages. So please help me welcome our special guest, Ambassador Neil Reeder.
Thank you very much, Elena. It's very kind of you, and I do appreciate your comments, of course, and you're giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone tonight. And our bonds go back to some terrific times in the Philippines and the support that I gave personally, along with Irene, to all the good work that Rotary International does in the Philippines and around the world. And we're so happy to see you, and hopefully we'll see everyone in person again soon once those vaccines roll out. But let me also thank Ambassador Robles and Consul General Austria for their very warm remarks and for their presence tonight. It's terrific to have you with us. I'm honored that you're here. And again, I hope that you enjoy and are enjoying your postings in Canada. Despite the difficult times, I think it's a great posting and a great relationship. And Irene and I greatly enjoyed our 3 years in your country. and it's marked us profoundly in many, many ways. And the beauty of this work I'm doing now is it takes me back to the Philippines with the presence of the B2Gold investment. So I'm a frequent visitor to Manila in normal times. So we look forward to going back, and Irene can keep practicing her Tagalog. She's still my Tagalog teacher from Pagudpud, I tell her. But it's a great opportunity to be with you tonight, and thank you so much for the invitation. So we'll start with the presentation now. I'm going to take you through B2Gold, sort of the corporate culture, but also our work as a miner and support of community activities. So we're talking about B2Gold as a successful Canadian investment in the Philippines. Next slide. This is a cautionary statement that is something we're required to do legally. It just suggests that some of the material may be forward-looking and subject to change, particularly in reference to production in the coming years. Next slide. So this is the map of the world according to B2Gold. And I highlight this headquarters in Vancouver on Burrard Street. We have over 4,000 employees worldwide. We're very proud to be headquartered in Vancouver, a Canadian company, proudly Canadian, a company that exports Canadian values, Canadian culture abroad, and best practices in mining. So our map of the world shows in Colombia an advanced development project that could well be our next mine. We're waiting for a final feasibility study. If you move to the African continent, we have two mines. Our largest mine, the Fekola mine in Mali, and the Otjikoto mine in Namibia in southern Africa. We also have an advanced development project in Burkina Faso called Kiaka, which we are looking at as a potential mine as well. And of course, on the far right, our Masbate mine, which I'll come back to. We're also a miner that explores. We're one of those unique miners where we have exploration, project development, construction, and operation of the mines all under one roof. So we do everything in B2Gold, including a very, very active exploration program, which is about over $60 million this year. And Finland and Uzbekistan are two of our primary destinations for gold exploration. We're very encouraged by what we see so far. Next slide. This is a corporate slide. It's just meant to give you an idea of our production. So here we're showing the 2021 production guidance, what we anticipate for the coming year. So just on the far left, you'll see consolidated gold production from the three mines. We are expecting slightly over 1 million ounces in production globally. The largest mine, Fekola in Mali, produces 54% of our production, and we're estimating, as you can see, between 530 and 580 ounces this year, 1,000 ounces this year. And then Masbate mine will come to in Namibia as well. So that is kind of the look of B2Gold as we go forward in 2021. Next slide. This slide also introduces you to the company a bit. Here we're showing you the flags of the various countries where we have built mines or acquired mines since the beginning of Bema Gold, which was the predecessor to B2Gold. So we started out in Chile in 1988 with our first mine. The same construction group has built 8 mines around the world, our latest mine being, of course, in Mali. In the Philippines, you'll see in 2013, that was the acquisition of the Masbate mine, which I'll come back to. It's also very important that we talk on the right-hand column about our guiding principles: fairness, respect, and transparency. It's kind of in the DNA of all B2Gold employees. We're also accountable. We're accountable to governments, to communities, to people, to employees. And in that sense, These principles guide all we do wherever we go. And those listing that we've got there shows you the emphasis that we place on delivering on what we promise, and that's how we build confidence and continuity, but most importantly with governments that can have confidence in that we will do what we say we will do. It's also very important, the last bullet, to highlight local employment and training, which we'll come back to as well. So Bema Gold in the year 2017 was acquired by Kinross Gold, just as we were finishing up a major mine in Russia. And then the new company became B2 Gold. Next slide. This slide just talks about the pandemic, and it's important to recognize that the mining sector, I think, held up very well during this period and showed governments in many countries that we could operate in a safe and responsible manner, keeping our communities safe and keeping our employees safe. In our case, across the mines, we never really saw any reduction in mining and operations during this period. And in the case of the Philippines, we had 5 days loss to production because we were unable to get fuel to our operations in Masbate. But two other points here. I think that what we're seeing now is governments recognizing that responsible mining is a very important job and revenue generator, especially in times of crisis, but also in impoverished or isolated parts of countries like the Philippines, like Northern Canada, British Columbia, Northern Ontario, Iqaluit, where mining can be such an important part of an economy where there are very few job opportunities. At the same time, governments now are facing huge fiscal challenges because of lost jobs and lost revenue due to the impact of COVID. And we believe that the mining industry can assist on both revenue and job creation while operating in a safe and sustainable manner. And I will say, in reference to the Philippines, we are seeing some very encouraging trends. Finance Secretary Rodriguez has talked about bringing back some of the mines that have been mothballed, that are sitting idle. Some mining licenses, permits are being renewed. So we see this as very positive. And as Julian was mentioning before we began, there's also the question of the opening up maybe for new exploration and open pit mining in the country. So these are important decisions for the Philippines to make. Not our decision as a Canadian, but we certainly encourage the Philippines to attract foreign investment in the mining sector. Next slide. So now we'll turn to the Masbate project itself. This is a joint operation comprised of two companies, Philminera, which is a supplier of ore, and Philippines Gold, which is a processor of ore owned by B2 Gold. As you can see, the mine is located on the northern tip of Masbate Island in a traditional mining area. Historically, Masbate was always a zone of informal mining, small-scale mining, and in fact, the origins of the town Aroroy, where we're located, is believed to be a Filipino derivative of the Spanish oro for gold. So in fact, there's been a long tradition of operating here. We acquired this project through a merger with CGA Mining in 2013. Since then, we've expanded our plant and moved to self-mining, where we're able to bring in more permanent employees into the mine site. Next slide. So this is showing you here an image of the mill, of the mine operation. The ore is brought here in large trucks from the pits where we're operating, digging up the ore that contains gold, and we bring it to this mine, this mill for processing. So here you're crushing the ore through gravity separation. You're separating the ore using other chemical treatments as well. And then you're producing gold from the ore that is melted and poured into gold bars. That's the process that unfolds right in this mill that's in front of you. And importantly, on the right-hand side is economic impact. You know, we talk about industries and what they can bring. These are real numbers, real people benefiting, and real benefits to communities far beyond the mine face itself. And Canadians know this as well. When you go to rural parts of Canada in the north, we know how important mining can be because there's so little other opportunity. And in Masbate, as you can see, we're the largest private employer and the largest taxpayer. Next slide. This is a nice photo. This is a Filipino geologist. So he is being trained in the Philippines. He is being hired by B2Gold to work on the Masbate project. And here he is doing some rock analysis as part of the exploration that we're doing outside of the mine itself, but on the mine property. We continue to find new reserves, and we're very encouraged by the opportunities to keep expanding our operations at Masbate. Hiring, training Filipinos is critical. Everywhere we work in the world, we want to have more locals and less expatriates. Most of our mines now operate with a large number of local employees and very few expatriates. Here you'll see 99% of the employees in the Philippines, including Masbate and Manila, are Filipino. And again, we're hiring from the local barangays, the 8 what we call impact barangays, which are very close to the mine. So they provide half of the mine employees. And senior management roles are filled by Filipinos. Whether it's the Philippines, Mali, or Namibia, we like to identify and advance young aspiring nationals of the country who can be progressively advanced to more senior positions in the mine. We want to share the benefits of our investment through training, through hiring, so that people develop skills that they can employ long after the life of mine. Next slide. Procurement is also important. Again, in Masbate, as you'll see, over 60% of our purchases are done locally or at the national level. We want to support the local supply chain and support the local SMEs. Obviously, if you're talking 777, these huge Caterpillar trucks, we can't acquire those. They aren't built in the Philippines. But as much as possible, we try to get our purchases locally or at the national level. And again, you can see the impact that we're having in terms of labor, where we're generating tremendous opportunities for local contractors. And as is mentioned in the previous slide, if you include permanent employees and contractors, 2,000 people are working in and around the mine site at Masbate. Next slide. So on the environmental side, it's very important. We're very conscious of this as a miner, because the industry has not always had a good reputation. But I would like to say that mining has made great strides, and we pride ourselves today on being a very responsible green miner. And important in the Philippines to note that the Philippines Chamber of Mines has adopted a guidelines called Towards Sustainable Mining. These are Canadian guidelines for social, environmental, management of tailings, etc. These are Canadian guidelines which have been adopted by the Mining Chamber of the Philippines. So we're bringing the best of Canadian mining expertise and the best of responsible mining to the Philippines. So here we're showing you some of the work that we're doing. For example, all the water that enters and leaves the mine that is used in the mine operation is treated back to a pH level of 7, which is a neutral pH, before we release it to the environment. So we are very responsible. Another important development where B2Gold is a leader, we're looking at this in the Philippines, but the problem in the Philippines is so much rain. But we've moved to solar power at 2 mines in Namibia and Mali. In Namibia, we have a 7 megawatt solar facility which provides a percentage of the mine's power. And in Mali, we're building a huge 30 megawatt solar plant, which will be one of the largest at any mine in the world. And our projections is that this will reduce our emissions from the mine by 15%, and diesel fuel consumption will be reduced by 13 million liters per year. So a very, very important impact. And we're very excited by the opportunity to move towards a more greener mining, especially solar power, which we're also looking at along with natural gas in the context of the mine, potentially in Burkina Faso. Next slide. I think this is one of my favorite slides. This makes me feel very, very good about my company and being a responsible miner in the Philippines. Some of the criticism of mining in the Philippines has been not proper mine management, not proper mine rehabilitation, and leaving sites not looking pristine. This is a former waste dump that has now been progressively rehabilitated through flattening the rock, adding topsoil and seeding. And now we've got basically a valley and a basin that looks entirely and is entirely natural. And this has taken time, but this is what we do, and we do it very well. And we do this as well with the pits where we actually mine the gold. So at this point, you can barely tell what is natural vegetation and what has been reworked. I would like to recognize that the DNR Secretary, Royce Samatu, came out to our site a couple of years ago, and he was very impressed by the rehabilitation work that we're doing. And he told the press when he left that it was the best run mine that he had seen in the Philippines. Next slide. So this just shows you hydro seeding. This is showing you how they spray out this mix of seed and mulch over the ground that has been prepared with topsoil, and then it all goes from there. And as this audience knows well, with the sun and the rain and moisture, humidity in the Philippines, these sites will grow back very, very fast. Next slide. We're also placing a great emphasis on reforestation. We will not and do not leave projects with barren wasteland, deforestation, loss of trees, etc. That's not responsible, sustainable mining. So here you can see one of our nurseries at Masbate at the mine site, and we've now planted in excess of 2 million seedlings in and around the mine site over some 1,000 hectares of land. These are mahogany plants here that are being prepared for planting. So again, this is the green impact. This is saying you can mine responsibly and provide a sustainable green environment after the end of life of mine. Now, in the case of Masbate, that's many years away, but you have to start now to rehabilitate all the sites that you've worked on and that are no longer necessary for the mine project.
The other question here. Oh, I just have here, I would like to thank Ambassador Reader for B2 Gold for support of Kancham, Philippines. Also to make a brief comment about mining situation in the Philippines. That's from Julian Payne. This is from the Kancham. Okay.
Thank you. May I make a brief comment?
Yes. Yes.
First of all, B2 Gold is an exemplary case of outstandingly good mining practice in the Philippines. But the problem is that there's quite a widespread anti-mining sentiment amongst the population, and including in a number of key senior officials in the government. What has changed recently is, of course, COVID-19 and the economic decline in the last year. And so now there's an increased interest in mining as a way to not only to help, frankly, the post-pandemic recovery. And we are seeing an interest in the administration in actually reconsidering some of the present blocks to mining, notably Executive Order 79, which stops new exploration outside of existing licenses. And second, also the ban on open pit mining. And we're aware, I can't confirm it officially, but I think there's actions within the government to make recommendations that both of those blocks to new mining be removed or eased. The only other thing I'd like to say is that CanCham Philippines has been very active with one of our priorities being promoting environmentally and social and reliable mining. And examples like B2 Gold really help us. We right now are actively involved in a lobbying campaign with the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines and some other business groups to actually get these impediments eased or removed entirely. And so having a Canadian example like B2 Gold, which is really outstanding in terms of environmental and sociable sustainability, is a huge help to our lobbying campaign. And just to mention, we already had a webinar last December supported by B2 Gold, amongst others, highlighting the economic benefits of mining. And secondly, we have one planned on the, I think it's on the 3rd of June, to highlight the pro-environmental sustainability of mining. For example, mining companies, not just B2 Gold, but mining companies in the Philippines have planted more new trees than all the rest of the tree planters put together. And that has been supported by data from DENR. So hats off to B2 Gold, hats off Ambassador Rita for your work formerly as an ambassador, now with B2 Gold, in actually promoting not just B2 Gold's interests, but with your way you are doing mining, actually supporting the mining industry as a whole in the Philippines. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Julian. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe we have maybe one or two more questions here from Roger DeMille. Are you integrated with the UN Municipal Community-Based Information System to capture your contribution to the SGCs? If not established in the municipality, recommend you assist to establish. From Roger. That's all.
Well, I'd be pleased to get some more information on that. And we, as I said, we are very conscious of the SDGs as kind of a pillar of our operations, and we're pleased that we're able to respond to the SDGs and meet them in so many areas of our work. But I'm not familiar with this particular program, but if someone's got more information, let me know.
I have a question here from Christine Williams. How does this benefit the impoverished people, ensuring they have ongoing support after the mine has expelled all its gold?
Well, I hope my presentation showed that there's an immediate impact from the gold mining today. There's also programs within the mine and the community to generate economic activity, to fund and assist micro-enterprise, to raise people out of poverty through opportunity and training and funding. And the long-term goal is to provide opportunity both within the mine, and we're talking 2,000 people in the case of Masbate, with contractors and permanent employees who benefit from this investment directly. In the mining sector, you normally multiply by 5 or times 10 the number of people who benefit from a miner working in the mine, in the respect of the longer term impact outside of the mine of people in the family, suppliers, contractors, etc. So those are all the ways that you have an important benefit in the near term. And as I said, the programming, wherever we are in the world, programming that builds capacity and shares skills with people will sit them in a good situation for the afterlife of mine. so they can take those skills forward. If you've already become a carpenter and you're certified and you work for B2 Gold for 10 years, when the mine closes, I think you'll have good opportunities because you've got a good record, you've got an employer, you've got everything you need. And this is fundamental to our work. I'll give you an example in Mali, which is far away, which is one of the least developed countries in Africa. We are now training 3,000 people a year in a training center in Mali, in rural Mali, where people are subsistence farmers. They raise goats, cattle. That's all they do. That's all they've ever done. We're teaching them skills to hold a hammer, to pound a nail, to begin to build rudimentary homes. Those sorts of skills, you can imagine in a tiny microeconomy like that, what advantage that gives to a person in the larger economy as they go forward. And they can create wealth for their families. They can send their children to school. So these programs, whether it's Mali, Namibia, or the Philippines, have tremendous impact, both today and in the longer term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. We have one more question here, and our time will be finished. We have here from Chris and Cecil. Aside from gold and other minerals, are you open to explore invest natural gas in southern Philippines?
Yeah, we're gold yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We're all gold all the time. We've always been gold. And there's really no other metal that we deal with. Natural gas is a whole other world. I guess there you go to my friends at the Canadian Embassy and you look at whether there might be Canadian investors who would want to come in and look at developing the natural gas possibilities. I know in my time there, we were looking at the opposite. We were looking at markets for British Columbia, liquefied natural gas that might eventually go to Korea, Japan, Philippines down the road. But I can't really speak to the natural gas sector because we're purely gold.
Okay, there's also one asking here from Tony, asking about copper, nickel. Are you limited to gold mining only, or copper, nickel, etc.?
Well, some of those, like if you get a copper mine, you'll have gold mixed in, like you'll get both as a product, or you primarily have gold but some copper. So that's certainly not possible, including some of the mines in the Philippines, I believe that's the case. But we're primarily gold. But again, Philippines is a very mineral-rich country. I think 4% of the country has been explored for minerals, very, very little. And there's tremendous potential. But again, it demands political will, community support. You know, there are obviously challenges, as Julian said, but there is, tremendous opportunity. But I think B2 Gold can be seen as an example of a successful investment, a responsible, sustainable investment that can bring direct benefits to communities and to governments, from the lowest person right up through the payment of royalties and taxes to the national government.
Ambassador Reeder, we want to thank you for your presentation. It was insightful and it was also challenging, and I appreciate that. We do have a small thank you that we want to exchange or hand over to you. We have some thank you, as well as we have a certificate of appreciation that will come to you probably by mail.
Thank you.
Thank you again, because in your presentation, I'd like to just thank you for what you've done, because you've shown that your mining can have economic benefits, but it also has a humanitarian and a social component to it, which is so valuable to us, particularly as an organization. As well as you had a component of your work was involved in wildlife protection. It offers a wide range of support to the Philippine community that's there and to us, we find that challenging. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we wish you great success as you carry on in your business.
Well, thank you very much. And I would like also to just do a shout out to Chris Acosta, who runs the Filminera operation in the Philippines, and all our mine staff for all their support of the company. I know a few people are online tonight, so thanks again. And as I say, I look forward to seeing many people either in Vancouver or back in the Philippines. And if people do get to Ottawa when the conditions permit, Irene and I are always happy to see our friends from the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This has been great. This is one component of our evening. We want to continue, and I'd like to call on Mercedes Wong, who is one of our directors, and she is going to lead us in a networking portion of our evening.
Hello everyone, I'm happy to do the elevator pitch for networking, and I can call on Anthony Li-Lam to speak for 1 minute.
Okay, so hi, I'm Anthony. I'm a lawyer with Logica Law Corporation, and I practice in corporate, commercial, real estate, wills and estates. So anything you need that doesn't go to court, generally I can help, or someone here can help. We do have a litigator on staff as well, if that is required. Anyways, if you need those services, happy to help.
The next that I can call on is Fancy Tam.
Thank you. Good day, everyone, and thank you, Mercedes, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Fancy Tam, and I work as a VP for Bank of Montreal before my retirement last year. So I have over 30 years banking experience in both commercial and personal financing. And right now I'm working as a business consultant in partnership with my son Chris to assist clients in their personal and commercial financing needs. So we work with over 60 different Schedule A banks, credit unions, financial institutions, and also corporate lenders. To provide customized financing solution for our client, for example, to acquire office building, for warehouse, and also like land development, and also other investment venture as well. And that's also, but we also this client with the residential borrowing needs. That's including apartment building, townhouse, row house, you name it. The key thing that I want to mention is like calling me is just like you're calling 60 different lenders. So, and I look forward to working with one of you guys. And you have any questions, about your own financing, please contact me to see how I could help you. So my contact information is, the easier way is my email, fancy.tam@outlook.com. Thank you, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Fancy. I could call on Christine Williams.
Mercedes, thank you so much for inviting me. And I'd like to start off just by saying thank you so much for the presentation. Amazing. It's so wonderful to see sustainability going into social development. Coming from working in the nonprofit for 18 years, I am a property manager, Fraser Region, for Looked at Housing and Health Solutions. So we deal with people with mental health and addictions. We find housing and try to work with different developers and such to create housing. So thank you for doing what you do. And if there's any time any of you would like to join me in a tour, I would be more than happy to tour you on one of our sites, whether that be our drop-in center. We have shelters, we have COVID relief centers, EWR, which we do in extreme weather cases. We also have permanent housing, low end of market housing, and various sober living housing. We also do medical services for the marginalized population within 17 different districts, including the Island, Abbotsford, Mission, Chilliwack, of course, downtown East Side, Surrey, New West, we're all over. So if anybody would like to see what that looks like, I'd be more than happy to give you a tour. So thank you for letting me join today, and thank you for doing what you're doing in the Philippines. It's amazing.
Thank you, Christine. I think we are running out of time, so I take it back to Irv.
Thank you, everyone. This has been a fun evening because we get to cover so many different topics. And we would like to give everyone a big thank you for attending. It's been very insightful for what we've heard today about B2 Gold and Ambassador Reeder and his work with them. Thank you all. Our evening is maybe a little short tonight, but again, within 30 days, we will have another session, and we would invite you to do that. Please stay tuned to your emails as we will forward another session to you. You're all cordially invited, and thanks again all for attending. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless you. Good night.